there's two camps of humans, I think, as it relates to trust.
Ooh, okay.
You've heard this before, but I think it works perfectly with where you're going, which is you are either a person who trusts first until proven to be wrong, or it's the opposite, right? You don't trust, and trust must be earned every little step of the way. Verify and confirm, basically.
Yes.
I had this conversation with my dad because we've been talking about it at EOS. And I said, Dad, I'm just curious. There could be these two different camps of people. And I kind of already knew the answer, but I wanted him to say, I said, where are you? He's like, oh, 100% trust first. And that's what I say. I trust first, which sometimes means you can get burned. But I think that trusting first has allowed for me to move more freely and autonomous than if it were the inverse, where trust has to be proven at every step of the way, which takes a lot of time. It's arduous. It also, I think, creates a block in human energy, because
Yes.
every time you show up in front of someone, for instance, Ben, you have to prove it to me, prove that I should have to trust you. It automatically creates resistance and friction. So I happen to think that if these are two different paths, the first path just reduces that friction to move more freely, even though sometimes it doesn't always work out.
Is that where people can be, well, Kelly's just lucky. And do you think that that is the basis of where it's actually because you have put yourself in the position to actually receive that luck, because that trust? You think that that's the difference between someone who's lucky or unlucky, in quotes?
Maybe. I mean, I certainly think I'm really lucky, like I hit the jackpot with my parents. Not that things were perfect, okay, in my upbringing, because we all have issues, right? The crosses that we bear. But I happen to think if there was one gift my parents could have given me, it was that confidence and trust first, because it just made it easier for me to move forward in friendships, right? In those early days as kids.
Yeah.
Starts off as friendships, and then you go to school, and then you go out into the world. And so I don't have a fear. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
So when you think about abundance versus scarcity, and love versus fear, and confidence and trust versus something else, I think I have been blessed to have that kind of love, abundance, confidence, trust component early in my life, for sure. Very lucky.
What would you tell someone who maybe didn't have that upbringing, right? I was just talking with Sonny, who is a mutual friend of ours, and his story is just a story of choice, a choice of mindset, agency, and I'm curious for people who are maybe struggling with that confidence, which is really that trust, right? Whether themselves and someone else in their situation. What would you tell someone that your learnings of watching your parents, and obviously as you've become a parent and as an entrepreneur, that to kind of alchemize that to get into like this mindset?
Well, I would have two things that come up for me. You and I didn't plan this, right? There's this, this is all natural, what's unfolding here. But two things come up for me. One is you are enough. So often I think in life, we're trying to convert ourselves or make ourselves into something. We do gymnastics to make ourselves into people for whom we think we fit into a mold or fit into a path forward. And just you're good enough just as you are, is what I would say. And the second thing is to keep going, because so often there's going to be obstacles in life and people who aren't going to agree with you or believe in you. Doesn't matter. Just keep going, because what you have is good enough if you just keep going.
When you think back, as we're talking about stories and struggle, because someone might be like, that's great, Kelly, you're the president of the US. It seems that's really easy when you're on top of the mountain, or what other people perceive as a mountaintop. Like what's been one impactful struggle that you've had, whether it was in childhood, teenage, college, or like that you really struggled with, that's had the greatest impact on your ability to look at the world differently?
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them, Ben. I mean, literally I have 1,000 different disasters that have gone on in my life, and, personal and professional. I think it's, I would say as a When I was about 12, I was diagnosed with scoliosis and also had like some blood sugar issues, not too dissimilar from diabetes, but not the same. And I would say that was a moment in time when I really had to learn how to deal with the social impact of that. I had this, they called a Boston bucket brace, and it was very painful. And it had to be worn basically 22 hours a day for 2 full years. And it just restricted movement, exercise, just kind of normal stuff for a 12-year-old. At the same time that I was battling some other health issues. Certainly, it wasn't life threatening. It was nothing like that, but it definitely created a pause, I would say, that made me just have to reflect on what does this mean for me. At the time, they had said, we're going to do this treatment for 2 years, but ultimately by the time you're 30, you'll be in a wheelchair. And you just kind of have to accept that, or there's a surgery that you can do and whatnot. But ultimately, that was sort of the diagnosis that I was given. But yeah, I didn't want to believe that that was true. And so there were just a lot of things that I needed to do. Imagine you're 12. And so 18 years later, you're expected to be in a wheelchair. It kind of changes your frame of mind a little bit. I just did everything that I possibly could that was given to me to prevent that from being true. And gratefully, I am here and I'm walking and I'm able to live my life the way that it is. But I think it's in those moments when life kind of hands you a different set of cards, and at whatever age that happens, you just have to learn how to address it. And I did have to reconcile that might be my life, but my life wouldn't be over if that ended up being the case, right? Is that the life is worth living. It just might mean that I have some restrictions or limitations. So that was, I think, a big personal thing that I had to overcome at a fairly early age. But then there have been plenty of stumbles along the way where I've almost lost businesses, almost went under. During COVID, EOS worldwide lost 90% of its revenues or was at risk of that. And we had to turn around that ship. So there's been so many things. I can't even isolate just one, but one personal example and kind of a flavor of some others.
Wow. Have you read the book Grit?
No.
Grit, I think, is this interesting mindset of ability to alchemize. And I just think about you at 12. And not only at 12, I mean, anyone at 12, right? This is like formative years where you are starting to understand social nuances, right? And if anyone's read or watched Lord of the Flies, right? That's how sort of middle school can feel. And what a maturing instance that happened to you. That, I mean, to literally be told in 18 years you're going to be in a wheelchair, which at 12 years old, you feel like you're bulletproof. Nothing can ever happen to you. Do you feel like that gave you started some underlying framework of how to deal with hard things? And I mean, did it create an urgency in you to live fully in present? I'm really curious, because I'm thinking about if at 12 years old I was told that 18 years old. By the way, in the medical world, again, for anyone who's in the medical world, my experience with my son when he was in the NICU before he passed, it can be very overwhelming and very scary, because everything's guilty until proven innocent, and everything's on the table. So I have to imagine at 12 when they say that to you, it's not like, well, it could be. It was probably felt like very much a certainty for you. Is that how you experienced it?
Well, it was strange how it unfolded, because what comes visually in my mind, and I remember this clear as day, as though it was yesterday, we were at the hospital when these different tests had been run, and they had us in a waiting room. And in walk like 20 doctors. Yeah. And I could see my mom's face, and she responded, right? Like, she's watching this can't be good, right? This is what she's thinking. And I didn't think anything of it, because I'm like, I don't know, I'm just a kid, but I'm watching, maybe this is normal, right? But she knows it's not. So I was watching my mom's face, and all these doctors come in. And then there's the lead doctor who's describing the case and the situation and all that. And the rest of them are clearly, it's a teaching hospital, and they're taking notes and all of that. But there was also the component about where they were delivering or foretelling the future, right? Here's where we are today. Here's what we found. Here's the options that are available. And here's likely the long-term outcome. And there's something in me that I think was, despite all of these doctors being in the room, like oppositionally defiant, like, no, that's not going to be me. And that lit up in me. And why I would think that in that moment, I have no idea. Why would I be thinking it? Well, somehow I know better than all these really smart doctors, but something in me just was like, no, this isn't going to be me. I don't know what is going to happen, but that's not going to be me. So that's what came up in me. Well, I had no good right to say that, but clearly there's a lot of luck and a lot of things that happened along the way. But I do think that changed my frame of mind, almost like I flipped from being maybe more passive to being more active and thinking about what my life would look like and how I might do everything I possibly could, even as this little kid, to make sure that if I could not have that future, that I wouldn't.
That's so incredible that even at 12, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, at least a leading indicator sign that you might be an entrepreneur is like when you have moments like that where that most people will be like, well, this defines me. And even before the words were out of their mouth, it's like you were already being like, this isn't going to define me. And I'm curious how that has transferred over to your role as a parent, like your own upbringing. You had, incredible examples, but you had some headwinds that I think a lot of times kids, knock on wood, don't have. And I'm curious, how has that shaped your parenting?
Yeah, I think that I have a foothold in two parts. One is I want to help my kids pursue their passion with everything in them and to find their passion, because it's never too early to be able to try things, experiment. So that's been a big motivator for me. But I have three kids, and two out of the three, they themselves have health issues with celiac disease and diabetes, and even some mental health stuff that has gone on. And so I think it's given me some empathy, because without those experiences myself, I might not have looked at it that same way. So I think it's given me both of those: is pursue your passion with all your might, find that God-given ability, unique ability, as strategic coach Dan Sullivan would say, really pursue that with all of your heart, because we have a long life ahead and you want to do exactly what you love with people you love, make a huge difference in the world with time for other passions. Something that we call the EOS life, actually. And then the other part of it is just, kindness costs nothing.
As entrepreneurs, we have a journey that is just not up and to the right. It's here, it's down here, it's the wilderness. And man, I have been through that, where you have to be strong, but you're fighting back the tears of crying your eyes out, man. And I know the time, like I intimately know as far as where I became and where I became, and I got that gratitude. I remember I was in one of my lowest lows, and I was trying to make payroll. I was, all the things that you were trying to do to build the company, that's like, they weren't working. And I'm just like, God, I am a good dude. Like, why is this not working? Like, what is going on? And I remember, like, I was laying on the carpet in my office, like the door was locked, and I'm just, everybody's going home, and and there was tears in my eyes, man. And I was just crying. And there was this sermon that I heard, and it talked about what you have left.
Ooh.
So many times we are just so focused on what's missing. So many times we're focused on the lack. So many times we're focused on, like, man, this is the way that I want it to go, but it's not here. Like, what is happening? And that mindset of lack can just eat you up, makes you down, and makes you depressed. And the sermon said, what do you have left? And then I looked at what I had left, and I still, even though my bank accounts were low, I still had a wife that loved and adored me. I still had my children that loved me, and they're healthy. And I still had a lot that a million men would stand in line to live my life one day, just for one day of what I had at that time where I was on the floor crying my eyes out. And so for immediately that day, I just started to understand what I had left. And what I had left was a dream life for someone else. And so how dare I walk with a spirit of lack. And so that's what I decided. And hopefully I didn't lose you, but it looks like I
No,
lost.
no, you didn't. No, you didn't lose me at all, man. I'm captivated. And by the way, audience, this is the exact same like thing that I heard coming around that corner, and I'm like, I gotta know this guy. And
Wow.
I think that this is the passion that I think that you bring for life that is just so contagious. And it's so interesting to me. A mutual friend of ours, Chad Johnson, I remember in a conversation, he said, it's so easy as entrepreneurs for us to want more, right? I mean, we just are born with that more muscle,
Yeah.
right? And and oftentimes that is actually the biggest headwind that we have to
Mm.
actually get what we want, because it's like we get so focused on the more. But he said something, he goes, like, we are living a dream that someone would die for. And just to your point, I'm really curious, Chris, when you made that shift, did your success follow that shift?
It did, but it wasn't immediate, right? It was, I'm blessed to say, like, I'm really, really talented, and I'm really, really determined, and I'm perseverant. And prior to that time, I didn't know what was me versus what was God until it was all stripped away.
Oh, come on, man.
Okay. And then I surrendered of like, you can work so hard. So, I mean, I was putting in 80, 90 hours a week, and you can work so hard, but God controls the increase. Do you hear what I'm saying? And so one drop of favor, man. And so, yes, like it was that I started to surrender and like be obedient, man, and control what I can control,
Mm,
and have faith that I don't have to micromanage God. He got this. The controller of all, he can handle all this. And when that started to happen, like it started to happen. And I started to enjoy the journey. I started having joy in the journey, not just in the championship that I was going after. And so and then that started to happen. Like I started to get rewarded because, God can bless my faith. But when I'm ungrateful and I'm in tears and I'm doubtful and I'm double-minded, then what I saw is that when it was all me, I was not winning. I did not have the joy. I did not have the fulfillment. And so to answer your question, Ben, as I started to do that, man, the blessings follow. Now you still have trials and tribulations. Like, it's like, man, Lord, I made it to this mountain. This promised land has been amazing. Like, and then you go through another wilderness. And like we learned
yes.
in strategic coach, and Dan says this, like, this is the courage part of the journey. And so it's
Yes.
like, and courage does not feel comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Courage is not comfortable, but I've embraced it. And so, I'm stronger because I have gone through those things that led me to that as well.
Yeah. I love that you said that. It's I think that the precursor right before growth is discomfort. And some of the audience will know my story, but I would say about 13 months ago, my son was born, and 16 days later, he passed away. And I realized that bittersweet is a God term,
Mm,
because it really emphasizes this idea that Newton's law is real. It's equal and opposite reactions. And the reality is that the sorrow that I still feel to like today is only a representation of actually the love and like the abundance that I feel. And the fact is that how lucky am I that I get to feel this sorrow because I loved him like so much. And so what I think it's so interesting as you're talking about is that what's the saying? And you probably, I'm bad with adages, but it's like, like growth is optional, suffering, or growth is inevitable. Growth, suffering is optional. And I
Mhm.
think that I think understanding that in terms of like, you don't get one without the other. There is no night without day, right? You don't get the variance between. And I think that it's so, I think it's just so astute as you're talking about that there's this courage aspect of it. And courage is that precursor, that discomfort before we really, I think what's in our future is finally unveiled. And it's often the courage is actually the sediment that we're excavating to get out of our own way.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. And, like what I realize is that a lot of people, uh, understanding that adversity is the prerequisite for major breakthroughs and success. But
Yes.
I realize that some people were just like me, and I'm not perfect in this yet, but some people suffer twice.
Yeah. Say more. Say more
They
about that.
they suffer twice. So they suffer with the anxiety of what hasn't happened yet. It's the negative outcome of what you're hoping for.
Yes.
And so you suffer now, like you really feel what that feels like of this not coming to pass. So you suffer then,
Yes.
and then because you had the doubt, you suffer when it doesn't happen.
Hmm.
And so what I realized, like building a business and building a business, man, it is such a mental game and a spiritual journey
Yes.
that you have to be equipped every single day. And so,
Yes.
like, I am so intentional, Ben, that I know that the afflictions and the challenges are going to come at me every single day. And I don't want to suffer twice. So I'm
Yes.
like super intentional every single morning. Like, I have this morning where I call it, I seek him first. And this is where I
Mm.
seek God first. And so I'm on my treadmill and I'm seeking him first. I'm like, I'm, I'm, I'm in my blessing list. I'm looking at adversity. I'm taking inventory of the adversity that has blessed me. Who has done that? Who has looked at the adversity that you thought was adversity and that there
Come
was
on.
blessings that came from it, right? I take inventory of my expectations. Like, what are good things that are happening that I'm excited? Like, expectation is a superpower. It's
Yes.
the anticipation of something good happening, right? It's
Yes.
the opposite of anxiety. So
Yes.
and then I write in my blessing list of like, Lord, thank you so much for these things. Like, I'm writing in my blessing list. So I'm doing that in the morning, Ben.
Yeah.
My mindset is so high that when the affliction, when the sight comes, it's too high for the sight and the afflictions to touch it.
Ooh. Ooh.
S-
It's
So
like
many, yes,
you've already won the day. Like you've already won.
I've won the day, man. And so, like, now, like, when the sight comes, I can dismiss the sight because it's light. If I roll out of the bed and I don't seek him first and I just,
Mm.
boom, I'm right into my emails, I'm right into my day, you're in the neutral. And
Ooh.
so, boom, this email from your CFO that provided you some bad news. Boom, you get this thing from an employee that said that they're resigning. Boom, you get this from a client, one of your best clients saying that, hey, they got to, like, now you are boom into depression.
Yes.
And so, like, your perspective is off, and you didn't even get a chance to fortify your mind. You didn't get a chance to enjoy your blessings and have that mindset. And so now your whole day is gone.
Yes.
And so now how do you even muster the faith to even go back? So now you gotta end that day, and then you're hopeful that joy cometh in the morning. So how many times do we go into this cycle, man?
Yeah.
And so,
I
so here's what I realized, Ben, is like all of us, everybody on this journey, man, like we have enough blessings in our life that people would stand in line to live it for one day. And at the same time, right now, I got enough in my life that if I were to jump off a bridge, you would say, oh, I get it. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yes.
So it's a choice of our perspective if we're going to really be consumed by our blessings, or are we going to be consumed by the burdens? And you know what you're doing most of by how you feel emotionally. If you are feeling down, you're focusing on those burdens. You're focusing on the lack. If you feel grateful and you feel blessed, you're focusing on the blessings in your life. And so I'm really trying to be intentional of focusing on those blessings, because the emails that all the site is coming today and tomorrow. And so that's how I fortify my mind to be ready for that.
I just got to say, you have blessed anyone who's listening to this immensely. So I want to say thank you. That was incredible. One of the things that I love that you have articulated incredibly is this idea of agency. Like, we all have so much agency in terms of, I think of things in terms of like sunrises and sunsets, right? And what happens in the middle of the day is, is it sunny? Is it a bluebird day? Is it cloudy? Is it stormy? Is it raining? Right? Is it a blizzard? Is it a massive heat wave? Are all these things that you call emotions? And the reason why I use like sunrises is that I think sunrises represent so much possibility. And what I love is that you create such an impenetrable sunrise that you have these bluebird days, and occasionally, yep, you got maybe a mid-afternoon, rain shower, but that just dissipates. And I just think that that's so beautiful. Chris, when you think about someone who's listening to this, who maybe goes, I want that. Like, I want what you are talking about. What are some things that you would tell them to be able to go, hey, it's free. Here's the first 1% incremental step that you can do. I mean, maybe it's the 1, 2, or 3 steps that they could do literally tomorrow morning.
Absolutely, man. I think that's so good. I would say that the first step is, number one is a relationship with our Lord and Savior. That's number one. This is too hard. I don't know how I would do this without him. That's number one. Number two is, before you check that email, when you wake up in the morning, before you check that email, before you check the text message, before you check the social media, that is time for you to go ahead and just get your mindset filled with the good things that are happening in your life. And so what I would say, the first thing is, so make sure you shut those things off. The next thing is, write your blessings. Just in your notes file, go one. And then, hey, man, I am just so grateful for my wife, man. The way that she expressed her appreciation for me really just impacted me. Man, I am so grateful that we just won that deal last week. It's going to provide some sustainable revenue. I'm so like, you write those down. So boom, write them down until you're done with them all, as far as in that day. The next thing is, write down the things to take inventory of what's working, of like what you, as far as your expectation. So that's where, like, and I'm so excited. I'm happy and I'm excited that this is going to happen when right. It's like the expectation hasn't happened yet, but you're hopeful in your expectation. Write down that, as far as that expectation. I would say doing those things are the first start of, like, man, it transforms like your day, and then boom, go ahead and hit the rest of the day.
How have you found that has transformed, right? You transformed yourself, right? Sort of like on a plane, put your oxygen mask first before you help others. But obviously, in terms of, it's great, we can talk about in terms of you getting into like a really great place that expectations, right? And expectations from a place of joy, not in terms of shoulds. But how has that transformed the people around you, whether it's like your
Oh,
wife, your kids, the people that are on like your inner circle of your team, and how have you found that has transpired, and how have you had to advise or share with other people so that you can get them on that same frequency?
it's massive. Um, it's massive because if you don't do these things in the morning, you're easily moved. You're easily moved by the negative things that happen, because they are going to happen. It's just how we perceive them and how we react to them. And so I can tell, like, when I haven't done that in that day, I'm easily moved. I'm irritable. I'm weary. And so you can't show up the best for your family and for your team. You're quick to be annoyed. You're irritable. Like, at
Hmm.
least for me, I am. And so I really like when I'm at my best self, like, I'm really intentional that I want someone that enters my presence to leave better than how they came into my presence.
Mm.
Like, if you could think about that, like, when people come meet with you, do they leave better than when they came in? And so, like, I really want to be able to be that for people around me. I
Hmm.
want them to be blessed. And there's times where I missed, like, where I'm with one of my team members, and I'm like, we already talked about that. Like, I need you to fix that. Like, and I can tell, like, I was a little too harsh.
Yes.
There's a way that I could have said that, which made them leave better. And so that is just where I could see that once my mind is right, once my spirit is right, once I'm in a blessed and grateful state, I can show up better for my team and my family.
It's so interesting. You were talking about, man, I feel so solid, and I had this imagery. Obviously, social media is something that we all experience in our life, and um, I remember Jenna, who's is my wife and my life partner and business partner across the 5 different companies and our charity. Um, and she showed this clip from Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO, and he had someone that was talking about telling the truth. And I don't know how that's the context, right? This person knows and is like a leading expert in when people are being honest or not.
Mm, mm,
And she specifically had Stephen say a lie, but she had him hold his arm straight out,
mm,
and then she reached across and she like pushed down in his arm, and his arm went like right to the ground. And then she said, "I want you to tell me a truth, and I want you to like still hold your arm out." And she went back, and after he said the truth, did the exact same force. You know what ended up happening? His hand
mm,
stayed exactly where it was. And they said
mm,
what ends up happening when you are not like telling the truth is that you are weak. You are weaker. And
mm,
so it's super interesting to me. And you're talking about, man, like, getting clear about expectations and blessings in terms of, and getting your feet right and getting your position right, with like your relationships. It's almost, I envision this idea of that you are creating, that you are living your truth. And therefore, when a slight pressure, you're not going to crumble, right?
yeah.
Because you're not living the lie of who you think you maybe should be, who others think you should be. I'm just
Mm.
curious, like, I mean, how's that hit you?
I think it hits me. It hits me so strongly. Like, integrity is, like, super important to me, and I could see that, like, even in my YPO session, we did a icebreaker where you have to tell two truths and a lie. And I'm like, why is this exercise so hard for me?
Oh,
Right. And it was so I think, yeah, I totally identify with that. And yeah, and I think that's partly why it's so important to make sure that we can show up in the right way.
yeah, I love it. Well, Chris, tell me a little bit about who's the man behind the mask. I think that people have, have seen you, right? I mean, we all wear these different identities, right? In terms of a lot of, I think people who maybe know you in this entrepreneurial space, right, know the things that like you you do like professionally, right? But like, what are the things that in terms of that you think that people would be surprised to know about you when you think about who Chris is behind the mask that everyone gets to see?
You know what? I think this goes back to what you said at the outset,
Hmm.
that what you were attracted to is I didn't realize how unique it is. There is no mask with me. And so like I'm the same exact dude when I'm with my pastor. I'm the same exact dude when I'm with my wife. I'm the same exact dude when I'm with my boys. I'm the same exact dude when I'm in a executive meeting. I'm the same exact guy that when I'm coaching my kids for basketball. Like I I am just uniquely like that in every single scenario, whether it's coach, whether it's this. I'm always me.
Everybody has a story they're telling themselves, right? You see or hear something and you tell yourself a story. And at the end of the day, it's like you're in charge of your story, right? I mean, it goes back to innocence. It's like, is it an advantage or a disadvantage? And I think once you can process your past and process your grief, then it can turn into an advantage, right? I mean, a big grief that happened, trauma in my life, is that when I was 15 years old, my dad went to prison. Right. So it was one of the worst things that ever happened. The cops showed up, put him in handcuffs, took him to prison. And, he's pretty much, in and out of prison the rest of his life till he passed away. But when I was able to process it and examine it, it no longer became an advantage or it became a disadvantage. It became an advantage. It actually is my advantage, right? Having that trauma and that experience. But if you don't process it, right, and take the learning from it, then it's not an advantage. And so I have all of this learning that I was able to have from that trauma, but it wasn't until like I really could process the grief. And what I've realized is that, over the last couple, maybe say months since I was at this workshop, is that I'm processing grief really, really quickly. My learning is really going quick, even though it's painful and it's a little challenging. Honestly, my learning is gone through the roof and my confidence is starting to increase. But it was really processing this grief, because when you go through it, you don't examine it. It's like you don't learn from it. And I think the value of every experience is what you learn from the experience.
Can you share, if you're willing, what did you feel? Obviously, 15 years old, senior. I mean, for most kids, your parents are your heroes until you realize that it's sort of like the person on stage, and then they realize that actually you're human, just like the rest of us. Um, what obviously I can imagine, as I'm sure our audience can understand, in terms of what that must have felt like. Felt like a scarlet letter, maybe, uh, maybe a little bit of disappointment, shame. But can you talk about what did you feel then that felt like a disadvantage, and how? I mean, that's a big little anthill to climb.
Yeah, at its core, Ben, I felt abandoned. Right? I felt abandoned. I felt all alone. I felt scared. Right? I was this little kid, and I'm the oldest of three, and so I have two younger sisters. So that was like my male role model. That was, and so, but what I realized in that, until I was able to process it, see, when somebody has a wound, here's what's fascinating about a wound. When somebody has a wound, everything becomes about that wound. Right. And so anytime anybody did something to me, I just felt abandoned. I felt like I was all alone. And really being able to speak that. And even today, I'm 55 years old. So what that was like, gosh, that was 40 years ago. And I think it's something that I'm still, there's even times today, I think like last week where, I just told my wife, it's like, I just feel kind of all alone. I know it's not true, but this is how I feel. Right. And not stuffing it. Because I think that's the problem, is because it's going to show up. Maybe you can stuff it all day long, but this thing is coming back around. And so realizing, that when there's a wound, everything becomes about that, which Ben, maybe we see this a lot with clients, right? Is, disrespect is a big thing, in healthcare right now, right? With nurses and stuff. And, a supervisor will walk by and say something, goes, well, she was just disrespectful. She didn't say anything. She didn't talk to me. She's disrespecting me. Right. And so then the leader goes, okay, I got to say hi every single time I see. And so the next day she's walking down the hallway. She says hi. And the lady goes, well, that was just, what does she mean by that? Why is she saying hi? Well, that was just it. Right. And it's like, can't win for trying. Right. I do this, you feel disrespected. I do this, you feel disrespected. And really realizing that if that's a wound that you have, every single action revolves around that wound. And until you can get that thing healed, it'll always come back up. Well, and think about even okay, so as entrepreneurs, right? I think sometimes we are the most damaged people with high functioning coping skills. Come on, right? Right. And so sometimes I've realized even in my entrepreneurial journey is how much of it was about the chase for healing. I was trying to fill something on the inside of Dennis, right? It's we got to get the new car and got to get the new house and, win this deal and right. And it was really, and this has only been, in the last 3 or 4 years for me, is that really, it's no longer about healing an inner wound. It's become just for the joy of growth. But I think Ben, if you can't tell the truth about yourself like that, and I just think how many people in the audience, really, is it really about growth, or are you just trying to keep up with this person? Right. Or are you just trying to have the country club membership or have these outward toys or these outward signs. Right. And only the answer to that. But I think a lot of times, I think that's sometimes the challenge, is that we're trying to fill a void that, gosh, that success can't fill.
Yeah. I mean, all these Band-Aids.
We're going deep, Ben, man. We're
We're going there. Well, it is interesting because I've always wondered, where does some of this ambition come from that you see in entrepreneurs? The willingness to step into the headwind, the willingness to step into the unknown, to go out on the the catwalk without a safety net below. Where does that come from? And I'm that's really interesting. That obviously I think there's some genetic and just there's some things that we have a ability to see the world differently. But I'm curious if some of the fuel are things that we don't even know subconsciously.
Yeah. And I think once I was able to really work on healing that, it's become more enjoyable. Right. There's not this internal, almost drive. It's the best way I could say it is almost like an internal demon that's kind of driving you. And so I've really been very aware of when I'm angry or irritated, it's well, what's really driving me? Right. What's really driving this? My wife told me that a while back ago that she said, she says, I love vacation Dennis, but I don't always like work Dennis. And she's a co-founder in the business. And so, gosh, we're together all the time. And she's a major part of the business. But, when she told me that, I said, okay, there's something wrong. Cause I can be on free days and, just enjoyable fun. But there's something that happened when I showed up at work and the work hat was on. And so I had to really step back and go, okay, well, what's really driving me? What's really kind of causing this anxiousness and this fear and so really, I think it's been a journey just getting healed and walking through those things. And
That's amazing. If your wife was here, what would she say is the biggest difference that she's seen from this in you? And more importantly, just in the last 3-4 weeks since you've come back and realized, I got a trunk full of grief that needs to be sorted through.
yeah, I mean, and my wife is great because she really does containment really well. She's able to just help people process through. So maybe that's a real advantage. I have having her on my team, but I think she'd probably say that, the joy is kind of coming back. there's more joy in the journey now, where it's not, and it's not so driven. And I think I'm letting things come to me, not having going after things. Sort of like just showing up and being really aware of what's around me, and then just having things come to me instead of me always going after them. Right. I mean, isn't it Dan who says that, you always want to be pulled, never pushing.
Yes.
Right. And so I almost feel like I'm really being pulled, and it's not so much about the push and the press, but it's about the pull. And I think a big part of that is just really being aware, and I think a lot of times, like, I don't know about you, Ben, but I just sort of like trade busyness, right? That feeling of like, right, for like really being, effective and productive, but it's like busy and productive are two different things. I'm a classy busy guy. Like I love a full calendar and run with my head cut off, but just being okay with a lot of like white space. And I think as I continue down this journey, I'm really starting to like Dennis, Ben. I really kind of like hanging out with him. You know, yeah, and I would say, for years I didn't like him very much, and gosh, it's kind of like raw and like sad to say here, but it really is the truth. And so I think that's really what's creating a lot of this, is because I like me. I'm a pretty good guy. I'm okay, and it's okay to be messy. It's okay to make mistakes. I don't have to be perfect, and so yeah, I tell people, when I left this workshop, I was telling some people that were there, is like, hey, I'm going to leave Perfect Dennis here in California, right at Costa Mesa, room 210. I'm going to leave Perfect Dennis, and I'm coming back to the East Coast. I'm just going to bring Messy Dennis with me. I'm messy, and then it's really freeing. It's really fun to be messy, and it's okay.
Thank you for listening. A big thanks to Elation Lab for the production and creative design. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep listening for more Max Life.